All right, I think we'll get started. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome everyone to our next keynote. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Abdulaziz Saleh Aljarbou, Chairman of SABIC. So Dr. Aljarbou's keynote will be centered around energy and in particular the chemical sector. So many have obviously pointed to petrochemicals as a key engine of oil demand growth to help offset secular headwinds and in other areas. But Dr. Aljarbou will also speak to some of the risks and some of the challenges around the chemical industry as well. So without further ado, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my high honor and great privilege to be invited to address this very distinguished forum. I thank Dr. Franson for his invitation and congratulate the Oil and Money Conference on its 40th anniversary. In these 40 years, Oil and Money has developed into one of the standing events on the annual oil, gas, and petrochemical calendar. Coincidentally, SABIC is also celebrating our 40th year. These anniversaries make this a highly appropriate time for discussing this year's theme, Strategies of Energy Transformation. Both the energy industry and the chemical industry are transforming, not only themselves, but also with each other. The energy industry is seeking new markets for its products as traditional markets prepare to contract while supplies increase, thanks to the development of hydraulic fracking technology. At the same time, an expanding and increasingly affluent and urban global population is opening new horizons for the chemical industry. Satisfying that demand will require new and environmentally sustainable sources of feedstock. While the specifics of these trends can be a surprise, the mere fact of the industrial transformation should not be. Our industrial landscape is in a constant state of transition. Consider the so-called certainties that many of us experienced at the dawn of our careers some 4 decades ago. In 1979, oil prices were soaring in the midst of what was then known as the energy crisis. Lines at fuel stations in the US and elsewhere snaked around the blocks. The expert told us then that oil and gas could only become more scarce and more expensive in the future. The then US President Jimmy Carter was warning that the world would run out of crude oil by the late 1980s. On the chemical side, established players dominated the sector. My company, SABIC, was barely 3 years old and had just 189 employees then. I know I was one of them. The experts told us at that time that there was no room in the sector for new entrants like SABIC. What a difference a few decades make. Some of these established players, I'm thinking of ICI and Hoist, do not exist anymore, at least as standalone companies. Major players in today's market, such as Sinopec and ExxonMobil, are with us and will be here for many years to come in the future. The probability, this probably feels like ancient history to many of you. I know it makes me feel a bit ancient too. However, it is really just an eye blink in the larger scheme of things. What will today transition looks like in 40 years from now? Of course, there is no one way of looking exactly how it would look. But the outlines are emerging. While significant changes or challenges lie ahead, the opportunities are bright. A major transition, I believe, will be the integration of the oil and gas sector with the chemical sector, so that the refineries of the futures are likely to be combined for both. The transition in both sectors is due to several trends, such as structural and cyclical transitions, along with shorter-term economic conditions, are combining to form energy and chemical sector that will look quite different from the ones we know today. I would summarize these trends as 3 Ds: decarbonization, digitization, and deglobalizations. The first and probably most important structural change facing both the energy and the chemical sectors is decarbonization. We have heard a lot about it in the last 2 days. It will be a very long time before the world decides that it can do without fossil fuels. But the public in most countries have decided they want to make a start toward moving away from them. According to the BP 2019 Energy Outlook, the demand for oil is likely to continue rising into the 2030s, when it begins declining, the demand declining, but not to stop, driven by increasing investment in energy efficiency, carbon control measures, and alternative energy. I caution that might be or might not be happening. It is important to point out that our other sources, such as the U.S. Energy Information Administration, project increasing oil demand for as far as the eye can see. But whether the market for crude oil expands or contracts, what is likely to happen is a change in the market demand for that oil. Demand for oil as a transportation fuel is unlikely to grow substantially. Electric cars are growing fast, especially in markets such as China. By contrast, the use of oil and gas to manufacture materials, including chemical and plastics, is likely to be the only share of the crude oil demand that will grow in coming decades. Last fall, the IEA projected that petrochemicals will become the largest driver of world oil demand. They anticipate that by the year 2030, oil demand growth will reach 9.6 million barrels a day, with petrochemicals accounting for roughly 1/3 of that amount, 3.2 million of barrels a day. Petrochemicals are expected to make up nearly half of the oil demand by the year 2050. adding nearly another 7 million barrels of oil a day by then. This should not be surprising. The reality is that oil is inherently ingrained in pretty much all aspects of our lives, even if those aspects are not immediately obvious in the ways that automobile or airplanes are. Demand for plastics, the key driver of petrochemicals from an energy perspective, has outpaced that of all other bulk materials, such as steel, aluminum, cement, and nearly doubled by the year 2000. Since advanced countries or economies currently use up to 20 times more plastic and up to 10 times more fertilizers than developing economies on a per capita basis, underscoring the huge potential for growth in the future. But the health of our planet won't improve if we simply use oil for purposes other than transportation. Sustainability is a key to the success of decarbonization. The chemical industry will need to make major investments in order to meet the carbon control targets being set by the global bodies and being enforced by carbon pricing. Indeed, experts say that a $30 ton carbon price will require investments level amounting to 2/3 of our industry global capital expenditures. SABIC is stepping up to the challenge. With our affiliates, Al-Bayruni, we were the first organizations in Saudi Arabia to receive carbon credits from the United Nations and have done so for 2 years running. At the Riyadh headquarters, carbon offsets accounts for nearly 44,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions and helped us to achieve the PAS 2060 carbon neutrality specification standards established by the British Standards Institute. Moreover, in Jubail, we developed the world's largest CO2 purification and liquefaction plant with our affiliate United Company. This has the capacity to purify and reuse 500,000 tons of CO2 annually as feedstock for new industrial processes and new products. But it isn't just the sustainability input about which we need to be concerned. It is the sustainability of the outputs as well. It is perhaps the world's greatest energy irony that oil and petrochemicals themselves are integral part of the renewables. Solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, thermal insulation, electric cars, and much more, which will use significant amounts of various petrochemical materials. Not to mention the important ways of petrochemical to contribute to protecting the environment, but by reducing the weight of planes, trains, and automobiles, which right now have material coming from SABIC in their manufacturing. Nevertheless, while sustainable recycling efforts are underway, especially in Europe, Japan, and South Korea, the impact these efforts can have on demand for petrochemical is far outweighed by sharply increased plastic consumption in the emerging markets. The production, use, and disposal of petrochemical-derived products present a variety of climate, air quality, and water pollution challenges that need to be addressed. The global backlash against plastics products is potential roadblock to the growth of our sector down the road. We at SABIC are very much aware of the issue of plastic waste and are committed to the circular economy. We are proud to be founding member of the International Alliance to End Plastic Waste on a global level, aimed at eliminating plastic pollution in our environment. We take our responsibility seriously. After all, our company was literally born of sustainability. We were founded back in the 70s to find valuable uses for flared gases that were then being wasted into the atmosphere. Instead of a cradle-to-grave view of the plastic cycle, SABIC takes the motto, a cradle-to-cradle view. One example is the new process we developed to convert mixed different plastic waste, which may otherwise end up in the landfill, into the cracker feedstock. This landmark initiative takes the previously unusable feedstock to produce original, high-quality polymers that can be used in a range of consumer goods and food packaging applications. These polymers are certified through International Sustainability and Carbon Certification Plus, which is ISCC Plus scheme, ensuring high standard across the value chain from source to the end product. At this year's World Economic Forum in Davos, we launched our certified circular polymers in partnership with customers including Unilever, Tupperware brands, Viventions, and Walkie Group. I am proud to say that we have since completed the first delivery of these circular polymers to both Unilever and Tupperware, proving that good policy can also be good business. Ours is by no means a complete answer, but it is an excellent beginning. The second major driver of energy chemical transition is the second D, which is digitization, which also was discussed in this conference. The computer revolution means that petrochemicals are no longer a traditional smokestacks industry. We are going high-tech. Chemical companies can use advanced analytics to extract management relevant information from the large amounts of unstructured data that we generate on a daily basis. These informations can be used to improve how plants are run and to make better informed and speedier decisions across the full range of chemical company business processes. Expert analysis estimate digitization holds the potential to increase the industry bottom line by as much as 10 to 20%. That kind of a bottom line potential can help pay for the investments we will need to make in carbon control efforts growing forward. These are the structural drivers, but we cannot forget about the cyclical drivers as well. Now we come to the third D, which is deglobalization. According to a recent study by the Financial Times and the Brookings Institute, the world is facing a general economic slowdown right now. This is only to be expected for a recovery as long running as the current one. And while the economics cycles is certainly part of the cause of this economic and sector slowdown, another is the tensions we are seeing around trade relationship around the world. The world is polarizing into trade blocs featuring their own preferential trade flows. The increasingly aggressive stance being adopted by some is emblematic of renewed tide of economic nationalism and retreat from globalization. This creates incentives and opportunities for increasing domestic manufacturers for chemical products. China, for example, is expected to become increasingly self-sufficient in many chemical in coming decades. This will lead to increasing competitive intensity in the chemical business. I do not wish to leave you with wrong impression. I have not spent so many years in our industry by being pessimistic. The future of both the energy and the petrochemical industry is exceedingly a bright one. Both of our industries have brought reliable energy, clean water, nutritious food, and so many other elements of long life to hundreds of millions of people around the world. I am confident we can continue to do so if we work together to build an even better industry than the one we have right now. One that has sustainability near the center of its priorities. Thank you very much for your time.